Hey y'all, hey. This is actually going to be a little bit of a newer series on the channel where I talk about things that I have been spiritually downloaded, so to speak. These are ideas that I have cultivated over time from learning from various different texts and from various different people in particular, meaning like other tarot readers, other spiritual people. And the series is called Explaining All of Everything because I really personally, I tend to look at things from a macro and micro perspective. How are the little changes affecting the bigger picture, and so on and so forth, and vice versa. And I sit down and I analyze a lot of the issues that most people deal with in daily life. And I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what is the purpose of going through such hardships. Why is there so much separation? Why or must we go through so much chaos and things like that? And originally, when I was thinking of these kind of things, I thought that I wanted to put it all in like one big video and edit it. But honestly, it's an ever growing and ever expanding concept. It would just be like the video would not end. The video would not end. So I feel like it's better to put it into the series. And I've also brought out my snowball microphone to try and I don't know, get a little bit of a better quality going for you guys. That means I'm also going to be editing this as well. So good luck to me on that. Anyways, our first episode today is going to be on why marriages and relationships have not worked traditionally. Why do most marriages and relationships fail or not fail? I don't believe you really fail at relationships. There's always something to learn from any kind of relationship, but why do so many of them fall apart? In a lot of these examples, I'm going to be taking it back to medieval times and shit like that, Victorian ages, because all of this is about evolution. You may hear the roar of my laptop, and you may or may not be able to hear my dog snoring. So if you hear that, any background noises, that's what's going on. Anyway, going back to medieval Victorian times, 1800s, 1700s, basically, essentially the dawn of mankind. From envision when marriage first became a thing, civilization first became a thing. What was the functionality of marriage and being connected to another person? It was survival. Traditionally, marriage and connecting to other people wasn't based on really any sense of compassion and more just survival, which, for example, is a reason why so many people had so many children. It's not because they loved those children and they wanted to devote themselves to raising those children. No, they needed more little hands to help on the farm. And fucking healthcare and shit like that was so unevolved and just down bad at the time that shit, you'd be lucky if the baby survives a week. And that's not even really anything to do with what the parents were doing. Like, shit. Back then, doctors thought that to heal you, they needed to cut your feet open. Look, like, they clearly ain't have no motherfucking sense. They ain't know what was going on. But what they did know is that in order to have the best chance of survival, you needed to have a community of people. You needed to have people help you. And so relationships and marriages were born out of convenience. Marriage is traditionally a contract. It was initially meant to be really nothing other than a legally binding deal that connected two estates together. It didn't really have anything to do with love. which is prominent in the way that arranged marriages were so normalized. Love was not part of the equation when it came to building a family or attaching yourself to another person. Meaning that our original and initial idea of what marriage is was 100% rooted in codependency. And of course, all the way up until, I don't know, like the 1900s, it was unheard of to get a divorce because marriage wasn't about love. So unless it was like somebody's broke or a man can perform his husbandly duties or a woman can perform her wifely duties, divorce was unheard of. And continuing with the womanly and the manly duties thing, that is why that those codependent relationships were so necessary. And it's because none of the people were whole people as individuals. They were all so deeply ingrained in gender roles that they weren't allowed to create individualistic lives for themselves. They weren't allowed to even try to exist in a way that was beyond just survival. Like, unless you were a king or a queen, bitch, you were, you had like no options. None. Like 80% of, you think the wealth distribution now is bad, bitch? Everybody was poor. Everybody was poor. So most people did not have options. Not even the royalty had options. They didn't choose who they wanted to marry. Those were often arranged. And I say this to say that our question for today is, why is there so much separation when it comes to relationships and marriage, interpersonal relationships? And that's because that separation has always been there. The separation that we're seeing now in the divorce rates and things like that is just a physical external manifestation of the separation that has been manifested within each of us internally for millennia. Women were not allowed to really have any kind of jobs besides being a prostitute. They were not allowed any rights. They couldn't vote. They couldn't, as a woman, you could not exist without having a man. And as a man, you also really couldn't exist without having a woman because you were likely not taught to do any of the homemaking, how to take care of yourself, none of that shit. Or you were at the very least not expected to know how to do that. So people got together and married each other out of necessity, especially women, given that they had literally no other choice. And so as time goes on and as women establish more rights for themselves, women no longer have to endure unhealthy, bullshit-ass partnerships just to survive. And a lot of women made the choice to prioritize their independence over being codependently attached to somebody in some kind of unhealthy way. Meanwhile, so many other people are still fighting the programming that's ingrained into them that they need to be with somebody to survive. And I think that's why so many people these days struggle being alone and struggle to not be in a relationship, struggle to just be by themselves. And that is because we have been trained. It has been ingrained in our human psyche that you have to have another person to survive. And I'd like to add that this is somewhat true, but not completely. Most things in life exist on a spectrum. And yes, you may need other people around you to thrive, but you do not need them to survive. And that is what we have been collectively learning over these centuries. And as we're learning that through the years, as we're gaining a sense of individualism within each and every one of us, now we're putting ourselves in a position to be able to step back and say, hey, I do not have to endure mistreatment from anyone when I can survive on my own. And that's where a lot of hookup culture really began to spring about. And now in our time period, we're hitting like the 70s, 80s type of thing. More people are realizing that you don't need to rely on anyone else to survive or to be happy in your existence. But in our individualism, in our own solitude that some of us have chosen to take part in, we are learning what it is that we actually do seek from connecting with other people. But now, instead of connecting with people from a place of codependency, from a place of survival, we are connecting with them from a place of free will and choice and love. And basically, I'm saying all of this to say that in order to come together in an honest and genuine, solid way, we had to separate and find ourselves as individuals so that when we do connect, when we do enter relationships, when we do decide that we want to get married and build a legacy with another person, it's with a person who is genuinely a match for us and out of free will and not out of scarcity or fear or need or pressure of any kind. And that's the real reason why so many of these marriages and relationships did not work out, because they weren't built on the stable foundations of real, genuine love, trust, and compassion, and things like that. They were built on fear. They were built on survival. They were built on superficiality. And of course, when things are built on shaky, faulty ass foundations, they're going to fall apart. For us to actually have marriages that last and not last just because the woman doesn't have any fucking rights and has no other options and can't go anywhere, but they last because both people genuinely want to be there with each other. So I actually want to take a second to, I think, end this off with referencing the tarot a bit, because the tarot has been around for many, many years, hundreds of years. So literally all of this is ancient knowledge, and the way that it's depicted is very deliberate and intentional. And it's really amazing how these interpretations are still able to ring true even in the modern day. And that just goes to show you how these principles that are depicted within the tarot are truly necessary and foundational concepts to living a fulfilling life. So let me find this card for you guys. The Lovers card for you all. Okay. So there are two people here. So yes, the Lovers card does represent a couple, but it also represents the individual, with the man representing the masculine energy within the individual, the woman representing the feminine energy within the individual, and this figure up here representing the individual's connection with God, the divine, angels, whatever you may believe in. And this is something that I'm going to bring up in another video, but I want you to take notice of how the feminine is looking towards God while the masculine is looking towards the feminine. And that is because the masculine in this image represents yang energy, masculine energy, active energy, proactive energy. It's external, it's material, it's tangible. Okay? While the feminine energy is intangible, is intangible. It is yin energy, it's receptive. In order for you to be making choices that are conducive to you thriving rather than surviving, you need to be focused on your inner wisdom and your faith and what you believe in. And you need to honor that and make your actions and choices based off of that, off of your intuitive nudges, off of your internal guidance. The moment that this woman looks away and looks towards this masculine, she is no longer in connection with the divine. Not even just she, you, the individual. I'm still talking about the individual. They are no longer in connection with the divine. The moment that your feminine energy stops focusing, she stops looking for guidance from inwards or from God, and begins to look towards the masculine energy, i.e., the material world, for guidance, you become of this earth, meaning materialistic, lost in the sauce. This is how you get lost, y'all. This is how you lose, trying to follow all of these worldly and all of these arbitrary worldly expectations, societal expectations, patriarchal expectations will lead you astray and put you in an energy of codependency, which the Lover's card reverse is codependency. And that is why we as human beings have not thrived as a collective for so many fucking years, because we have been continuously focused on the material, continuously focused on surviving, instead of what actually is fulfilling to us, seeking what is actually fulfilling to us internally. We're looking for that constant external validation, which embedded codependent ideals into all of us. Now, the Lover's card was originally referred to as the choice card. And for a long while, I had more or less a vague idea of what that choice was, what that choice represented. And just the other day, I was downloaded that this choice is about a choice between yourself. How much are you willing to compromise? How much of yourself are you willing to compromise to be with another person, to be in connection with another person? Because love does require compromise. But you shouldn't be sacrificing your own connection with self in order to have a connection with another person, because that's codependency. And that's what people were doing for many, many years. I said that several times. We are now in an era where I'm not gonna say most people, but a lot of people, and it's getting to most people, are enlightened to this. Maybe not exactly everything that I said, but are enlightened to the fact that in order to have a healthy connection with another, you have to have a healthy connection with self. You can only meet someone as deeply as you have met yourself. That is a quote that I got from Baba Jolie Tarot. I haven't watched her videos in a long time, but she's a very great reader. Very great reader. So you can only have as much emotional fulfillment and a connection with another person as you have within yourself in your own presence in your own life. So all in all, in my opinion, the purpose of so much separation was for us to be isolated with our own selves for enough time to actually know ourselves and what we want for ourselves, so that when we do feel comfortable enough to go out and interact and connect with other people, it's from a healthy space. And the connections that are made are stable and genuine. So, yeah, that was the first episode of explaining all of everything. I might make this into like a kind of podcasty thing, because I think that might be pretty cool. Please let me know what you thought about this. I would love to also hear your opinions. Keep it cute though. Like, I personally, I love a debate, but a cordial debate. Like, I wasn't sitting here screaming and yelling, so nobody need to be screaming and yelling at me. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that it made you think a little bit. Let me know what you think of this first episode. Definitely please comment and leave a like, especially if you enjoyed this. And here's to hopefully many more episodes. All right? Thank you all for watching, and thank you all to everybody who supports the channel. I think that's it. Remember that you are loved, you are important, and that you have value. All right, y'all? Bye, y'all.